I've got a Haitian client who was able to connect with their African cousins through DNA testing. My name is Andre, and I'm a genealogist who helps people to discover their history. I've been working on my client's family tree, but something that they did that has been really helpful in helping to understand about their ancestry has been DNA testing. As a genealogist who also uses DNA to help us understand our family's history, one of the most amazing things about DNA testing are the matches. These genetic matches are cousins, people that you share DNA with. And the reason why you share DNA with them is because you share common ancestors. I found his distant African cousins because he shares common ancestors with them. But before I get into that, there's something that you need to know about the African diaspora. The transatlantic slave trade, spanning from the 16th to the 19th centuries, was one of the most violent, genocidal occurrences in history. Europeans violently fashioned the African into an expendable, interchangeable commodity, an object to be bought, sold, and inherited. The world of chattel slavery they created enforced natal alienation, where ties of birth were not recognized and familial structures were intentionally broken apart. The numbers are staggering. It is estimated that over 12.5 million Africans were severed from their homes and family connections. Siblings no longer saw one another. Mothers lost their children. Husbands lost their wives. Whole families were torn apart. As historian Stephanie M.H. Camp wrote, they were severed from the family relationships and linguistic and political affiliations that gave them identities as persons. They were violently reborn as black slaves after being expelled from the dark, cramped wombs of slave ships, forever cut from land and kin, scattered to the Caribbean, United States, Central and South America. To quote genealogist Steve Mendez, we of the African diaspora are the lost children of Africa, descendants of those who attempted to endure and survive this violence as best they could. And the fact we are still here is nothing short of miraculous. Back to my client. In combing through my client's matches, I was able to identify close to 40 African cousins. I found cousins from modern day Benin, Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, and Guinea. In talking with them, I found out that some of them are Hausa, Yoruba, Isan, Ewe, Fulani, and Igbo. This just highlights the fact for us in the African diaspora that we don't just have one African ancestor that we descend from. We have several ancestors from the continent. My client's ancestry goes back to the colonial days of Saint-Domingue, where the mortality rate of enslaved Africans was extremely high. So the fact that he descends from multiple survivors is incredible in and of itself. But to find several Africans from different people groups, people that he shares common ancestry with, this is incredible. Not only that, they connect on different branches of his family tree, highlighting again, he doesn't have just one African ancestor. As incredible as all of this is, I have to share with you guys one of the most incredible stories one of his matches shared with me. I had the pleasure to chat with one of his Nigerian Igbo cousins, and he shared this incredibly moving story. He shared with me that when he was a child, his grandfather used to tell stories of family members that had been kidnapped and enslaved, people that were long lost. He told me that whenever his grandfather would tell these stories of these relatives that were never seen again, that his grandfather was still in pain over it. It still was something of anguish to talk about how family members were taken and not ever seen again. And in hearing these stories and seeing his grandfather's anguish, it left such an impact on him that when he grew up, he decided that he was going to take a DNA test so that he can reconnect and find the descendants of those that were taken. He said, I was moved by the pains he felt even after many years whenever he tells the story. So I felt, although he has gone, that for his memory, that I have to put my DNA out there in the hope that it might help someone reconnect. A lot of our relatives were enslaved, and I felt that if I help one person to reconnect with their history, the purpose will be achieved. This was such an incredible emotional thing to hear, because here it is, an African talking about their family's trauma and how it negatively impacted them on that side of the Atlantic. So here was an African family who never forgot their relatives who were taken and they never saw again. They remembered them, and they never got over the pain of how it felt to lose their relatives. It just highlights the negative traumatic impact of the transatlantic slave trade. But what was so incredible about it was that we're hearing about it on the African side. And he, this, my client's cousin, wanted to reconnect and find the descendants of those he had heard that had been taken. And here he was actually finding someone that descended from one of those long lost relatives. This was just, I can't describe it. The trauma of the transatlantic slave trade disrupted and displaced whole families. And while DNA testing cannot and does not repair any of the irreparable damages of the afterlife of slavery's supposed end, it is possible to use it as a tool to reach back across the Atlantic and connect with kin that had been severed, family members that had been split apart. Yeah,